Hey everyone, so the big story coming out of the lock-in tournament last weekend was, of course, 100 Thieves being upset by Dignitas 2-0. And of course, this is a Dignitas team that comes into the season being placed 10th or maybe 9th by almost everybody, with very low expectations. And of course, with their jungler River having arrived and joining the team less than a week ago, so very little practice together, no real chance to kind of get used to one another or learn about each other, and they come in and they upset last year's summer champions, a team with their only roster change being bringing in Tenacity as an alternative top laner, they only even used him in one game. So this is a pretty big deal in terms of how big of an upset it is. But as a 100 Thieves fan or maybe a member of the organization, the question is, should you be worried? Should you be concerned about what this means for the year going forward? And I think there are a couple angles you can approach that from. You can say, well, hey, it's just a preseason tournament. It didn't really matter anyways. And maybe they weren't even, trying their hardest or taking it that seriously and treating it more as a learning opportunity, something like that. I don't think that applies in this case. I think it's pretty clear that 100 Thieves wanted to win this tournament. After the loss, Papa Smithy tweeted, "A lot to process with today's loss. Well played to Dignitas. They were the better team on the day. We've got a long way between our best and worst right now. The only silver lining is it's still preseason. Confident we can show our best when week 1 of the LCS rolls around." So I think when you take the tone of that message and add it to some of the other kind of factors we can see, he's talking about the only silver lining. So clearly this is very disappointing. But at the same time saying, hey, acknowledging it is still preseason. Our eyes are focused on week 1. So, but I think you can read into that and say this was a tournament that mattered to 100 Thieves. They're not just blowing this loss off and saying it doesn't really matter, and that they don't really care about it. When you look at the fact that they played Someday in every game but one, and if they really weren't taking this tournament that seriously, they could have subbed Tenacity in a lot more, and given him a lot more experience and opportunity, but they chose not to do that. When you look at them, picking Viego multiple games for closer when, that was a champion that he stood out on so much last year, and he could have been using it to do something a little more spicy or be a little more experimental with it. I think you take all those kind of pieces of evidence together and you say 100 Thieves wanted to win this tournament. This mattered to them. And I think, well, it should. So I don't think you can take this loss and say it's not concerning because it was only preseason. I don't think that's a useful lens on this. So the more appropriate question to ask is what is it about the way they lost or the reasons they lost, and what does that tell us about potentially competitively what we might expect for the rest of the year? So, how did they lose? Well, I think it comes down to a couple of things, and I think without trying too hard to single out individual players, because I think all of them could have done better, but I think Abadage is the one who does kind of stand out, unfortunately, as someone who underperformed. When you watch the way he played, he got a lot of help in the mid lane, as he typically has on this team. Ganks from closer, some roams from Huhi. Maybe not as many roams as if Huhi was on the melee supports that he kind of excelled at most last year. But still, he got plenty of presence from his own team, but a lot more from the enemy team. Especially when you look at that Dignitas series and the amount of time River spent in mid lane attacking him. The enemy ganks got more done than his own team's ganks. They managed to kill the enemy mid laner multiple times, but Abadage was chain ganked, he was set behind, he wasn't going ahead in his lane, and you'd like to think that he'd be able to be a little less vulnerable, get a little bit more done, be a little more in control of those lane matchups. There were also just kind of some basic mistakes, like dying with flash up, not flashing out of a Leona ultimate, things like that, that showed a bit of something's not quite clicking for him at the level we'd expect. And we came into this year, or I came into this year expecting Abadage is the clear number 1 mid laner in the league. And for anyone to kind of take that away, they're going to have to show some sustained, strong performance to take it away from him. But he hasn't showed up with that kind of caliber so far. If you look at the stats as well, I think it's pretty clear there that he was down negative 96 goal plus experience difference in 10 minutes in the tournament. He had a kill participation barely above 50%. He had the second lowest damage per minute of mid laners in the tournament so far. It's just a really rough tournament for him. So that is a little concerning, and was part of the reason I think that they struggled in those Dignitas games. I just want to take a quick digression here and say, when we're talking about them losing, it really is the Dignitas games. They only dropped one game in the group stage before that, so it's not like they flopped the entire tournament overall. But other reasons they lost, I think having Huhi played the Enchanters alongside FBI and try to really bully the lane like that, that's been something that they've tried in the past, but it always seemed like they did better when Huhi was on those melee engaging champions, the Alistair, the Nautilus, something that can not necessarily bully the lane as hard, but be a clearer contributor in the 5v5s or with those mid lane roams for the ganks, where you can add a little more CC. And you know, they stuck to that, and it didn't really work out for them in those 2 games. So that's, you know, a bit of a consistent issue from last year, I think. And speaking of consistent issues, I think just the fact that they got kind of outpaced in the early game. River was ganking everywhere. You know, they were trying to snowball through bot lane, but Dignitas kind of shut that down, outganked them elsewhere, out snowballed them. And watching the group stage games that 100 Thieves played as well, I think there was definitely a sense of this, that 100 Thieves are playing a little bit slowly, a little bit methodically, too methodically, and not really kind of maximizing tempo, playing for pace, getting the game rolling, closing out wins aggressively or as quickly as they could. These kinds of things. And that's kind of nitpicky when the team's winning. But when they lose, and when that's part of it, it starts to become more of a problem that you notice. But this is a pretty classic way for this team to play and for this team to lose when they do lose. So when you put all those things together, I think the concerns that I'm raising are things that have existed for 100 Thieves and existed all throughout the summer, really, last year. But the Abadaga underperformance kind of adds in on top of that and kind of made it a little bit, you know, that much worse, and kind of they multiplied together to lead to this underperformance and this loss. So putting all that together, should we be worried about what this says for the 100 Thieves kind of prospects in the future? Well, is it concerning that they weren't able to fix last year's, I'd say, most core issues? And let's put that in light of they won the summer split, but they had some things they could improve on, right? I don't think it's concerning that during an off season, coming into a preseason tournament, they couldn't fix something that they weren't really improving that well through the entire summer split. Is it concerning that Abadaga is having a slow start? Well, kind of, yeah, but it's still so early in the season that you're not really gonna, jump on the guy for a couple of noticeably bad games and then a few where it was kind of more meh, not so bad, but a little bit below par. So, you know, I think there are some reasons that there are some things for us to keep an eye on with 100 Thieves, and I think they are going to be very disappointed that they didn't do better in this tournament. But on the whole, there isn't really much new to be concerned about. There are some things that the team has always needed to improve. They're still getting used to having tenacity around and doing the 6-man roster kind of setup, and maybe that's holding them back a little bit. I think there are lots of things you could look at. But until we see, you know, if this level of performance continues for half the regular season, that's when you start to be worried about it. But there's so much time for them to continue to work on the things that they've needed to work on for a long time. Maybe this will be a little bit more of a useful wake-up call, because when you're having these issues but still winning, of course, it's really easy to just say it's fine. If Abadaga still struggles or plays at this level for that long, you start to get worried about that. But on the whole, I don't think you need to be worried about 100 Thieves. I think they had an off day, and I think they had, a pretty standard them performance, and River came in and it was like a wild man on Jarvan and just kind of punished them in a way that they clearly didn't expect to be punished. So 100 Thieves fans can rest easy, I think, enjoy the rest of the tournament. Look forward to week 1 of the LCS, and I think your team is probably going to be just fine. Thanks for watching and supporting my content. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and check out the channel memberships if you want to get access to custom emojis, special roles in the Oracle's Elixir Discord, and other perks.